Hey guys, it's just Chelsea jumping in here before we get started on this awesome new series to talk to you a little bit about our sponsor making it possible, Betterment. This series is all about adapting your psychology to your money so that no matter what happens financially, you are best prepared to handle it. And as we get close to the end of the year, there is no better time to make sure that your money is working for you and not stressing you out. Luckily, Betterment makes it easy to invest and save for what you care about. Their automated technology keeps you invested in expert-built, diversified portfolios, so you can rest assured your money is where it should be. With Betterment, you can keep building wealth while enjoying the season, ready for whatever comes next. Get started, be invested, sign up in minutes. Head to betterment.com/TFD or click the link in the description box to sign up.
Hey y'all, I'm Kara Perez, founder of Kara Explores Money, author of the book Money for Change, and I am hosting this 3-part series here on TFD that is all about money and mental health, a very important topic for most of us, especially at a time like this. And we're kicking off our first video in this series talking about the abundance mindset and how that can both help and harm your personal finances. Now, I'm not much of a manifestation girly, and I don't think that anyone who knows me would accuse me of being woo-woo, but I am someone who does believe in keeping yourself open to any opportunity that might come your way. Even if I'm not sure what that opportunity might be or when it may come, I am someone who believes that there's always something kind of cooking in the background. I come from a low-income background. I grew up in a single-parent household in New England, one of the most expensive areas of the country. My family was on food stamps for about 6 years of my childhood. I'm the only one of my siblings to go to college, and I did have to take out student loans in order to graduate. And then after graduation, as a young adult, I was exceedingly low income, living at the poverty line in Austin, Texas for several years. I'm 37 years old, and I have, to date, never had a full-time salaried position. I worked 5 different part-time jobs to pay off my student loan debt in my 20s, and it wasn't until I started my own business that I finally had one job that paid all my bills. I share all of this so you know a little bit about who's hosting this video series, but also so that you understand that I'm a pretty type A practical-minded person, and yet still, I do practice the abundance mindset. But when it comes to the idea of manifesting money or the abundance mindset, America in particular has a long and complicated history with the idea that you can use sheer willpower to change your financial destiny. And a lot of this is downstream from 2 hallmark cultural focuses, the Protestant work ethic and the prosperity gospel. A lot of American history is tied up in this idea that hard work in a capitalist sense is not only good, it quite literally makes you holy. The phrase was initially coined in 1905 by sociologist Max Weber in his book The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. Weber asserted that Protestant ethics and values, along with the Calvinist doctrines of aestheticism and predestination, enabled the rise and spread of capitalism. Just as priests and caring professionals are deemed to have a vocation or calling from God for doing their work, according to the Protestant work ethic, the lowly workman also has a noble vocation which he can fulfill through dedication to his work. Now, I'm born and raised in New England, which I would argue is the hotbed of the Protestant work ethic in the United States. And it's also the bedrock of old money. When we think about old money in the United States, we are largely talking about families that come from areas like New York, Philadelphia, and Boston. From the initial Protestant work ethic, the idea of abundance of money, or lack thereof, became closely associated with how close to God you were. The belief was that if they were religiously faithful and, of course, generous in their donations to the church, they would in turn be blessed financially. Essentially, anyone who had a lot of money must in turn be deserving of that money because God favors those with a lot of money. You see how we form a very handy cycle for the justification of wealth. And similarly, the Protestant work ethic also forms a handy little cycle for the judgment of poverty. If you are poor, it's simply because you're not working hard enough. The prosperity gospel teaches us that wealth is a sign of divine favor, and therefore the lack of wealth is a sign of spiritual failure. This created a social expectation that money is a moral outcome, not a material one. And quick shout out to my book talk girlies here. If anyone ever read the YA book, The Witch of Blackbird Pond, it is basically a scathing review of the Protestant work ethic and the prosperity gospel, just put in YA form. Essentially, the main character in this book is a young woman who loses her family and loses her money and is quite literally outcast to a pond from her 16th century Protestant society. It's an absolute banger of a book, really the intersection of misogyny and the Protestant work ethic, and I strongly recommend you check it out. Now, since the 1600s, Americans have gotten consistently less and less religious. But the prosperity gospel is still alive and well in our lives. Faith was replaced with thoughts, but the core idea remained. If you're not wealthy, something is wrong with you, and it's probably your own fault. It must be your mindset, your vibe, or your energy. And we can see this belief alive and well in many facets of American life today. Take, for example, the most recent controversy over SNAP benefits. All you have to do is log on to Reddit, Facebook, or God forbid, Twitter, and you will see thousands of people fighting to death in the comments over the fact that someone who works 20 hours a week does not deserve to eat. The prosperity gospel feeds hyper-individualism, which of course ignores the systemic barriers and challenges that many Americans have faced since the founding of this country. If you're a longtime TFD viewer like I am, you know that TFD has touched on this topic before, so I will link you to this video that I strongly encourage you to watch. Now, with the Protestant work ethic and the prosperity gospel as kind of our foundational cultural beliefs here in the United States, that leads us into this idea of the abundance mindset. And this is where things get a lot more vague and honestly, a lot more scammy. Take, for example, The Secret, published in 2006. Rhonda Byrne's The Secret popularized the idea of an abundance mindset, but in doing so, it blurred into something far more vague and commercialized. By promising wealth and success through positive thinking alone, like having the universe as your catalog, or whatever that means, it reframed abundance as a near magical guarantee rather than a grounded psychological approach. Its emotion-driven and cinematic style, its promotion through seminars and branded teachers, and its spread across get-rich-quick spaces exploited the concept of the abundance mindset by making it feel more like a self-help gimmick or a pseudoscience. Rhonda even released a pseudoscience documentary also in 2006 that went as far as to suggest that the elite people who run our world got into that position in part by using this strategy of an abundance mindset and by keeping it secret from you. I find this insinuation incredibly predatory, especially as we have seen in recent years how conspiracy theories have really damaged the American cultural fabric. What makes this type of abundance mindset particularly insidious is how it's been embraced in the world of money-making gurus and money-manifesting scams. All you need to do is look on this very platform to see videos with tens of millions of views on money mantras, or the rise of things like TikTok psychics and Etsy witches. There are spells for making $5,000 to $10,000 fast, available for purchase on Etsy for only $5.99. Perpetuating this idea that all one needs to put money in their bank account is happy thoughts. These kinds of products, and make no mistake, they are products, are so far from the financial education that many people need. When we should be helping people understand things like how interest works on their credit card or how to open an IRA, instead, this type of money discussion leans away from the practical and into the intangible and downright dangerous. It's the perfect scapegoat for when it inevitably fails. You become the problem because you didn't want it enough, you didn't cast the spell correctly, or you need another session with the psychic before you actually become rich. But on top of that, it also lays the foundation for a belief that people who have reached these elite circles or positions of power, whether that be financially, politically, or culturally, got there by simply having positive thoughts. And it wholly ignores the centuries of racism, sexism, and discrimination that have literally been woven not only into the cultural fabric of the United States, but our literal economy. The US as a country was founded by a group of rich white men who quite literally wrote into the Constitution that if you were not also a rich, land-owning white man, you were not a citizen in the same way as they were, and you did not have the same rights that they did. No amount of work ethic or positive thinking can overcome you not being seen as a legal citizen. On top of that, The Secret's version of the abundance mindset encouraged people to simply believe their way into wealth, that money was something that would just materialize in their lives, as opposed to teaching people smart financial habits like budgeting, saving, and investing. And this unfortunately can lead people into more dangerous financial situations. Because if imagining money is all you need to do to be financially healthy, you are going to be more likely to do things like overspend, undersave, and take on high-risk financial investments. After all, if that investment doesn't work out, all you have to do is think positively and the next one will. Now, obviously, this approach to money, but also valuing people, is incredibly problematic. So now I think we can ask ourselves, what's a more healthy version of an abundance mindset? So it's incredibly understandable that if you're a practical-minded person like myself and like many of the people in TFD's absolutely fabulous audience, that you might be thinking, okay, look, I don't really believe that simply thinking about things differently can have that much of a tangible impact on my life in general, but particularly something as important and as nebulous sometimes as finance. But there actually is a well-defined body of research that goes to show that the way we think does actually impact our lived experience, even down to how our bodies function. Take, for example, the impact of perception of aging on lifespan. A 2002 study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that people with a positive attitude towards aging lived an average of 7.5 years longer than those who internalized negative stereotypes. Now I'm about to tell you an anecdotal story, and I have no scientific research or evidence to back this up, but this is why I remain kind of an abundance mindset girly. As I mentioned earlier, I have been low income for the vast majority of my life, and when I was making $16,000 a year, $17,000 a year, living in Austin, Texas, I was also trying to pay off my student loans, which meant that I was living on less than a shoestring. I mean, I had years where I was literally living off of $10,000, $11,000 a year. And during one of those years, I literally got in the mail a Visa gift card that had $250 on it, and it came in an envelope with no return address. Now, look, I asked around, okay? I asked my friends and family, I asked my roommates if maybe their parents had sent me this money. Still to this day, I have absolutely no idea where that Visa gift card came from. But I do know I spent that money. It just appeared. It literally just appeared in the mail one day, and I used it to do things like buy groceries and put gas in my car. Now look, it's spooky, I know. But that money found its way to me not only when I was at my lowest income, but also when I was working my hardest to change my life. I woke up every day knowing that I was struggling with money, but believing that I would be able to pay off my student loan debt. And I was looking for any avenue that I would be able to make more money in so that I could put more money towards my debt. So for me, it was kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. I woke up every day thinking, I'm going to take action on my money. I'm willing to do whatever it is to make change in my financial life. And then this $250 just appeared. I mean, it's spooky as all hell, honestly. It's still a very weird experience that I had, and I can't explain it, but there it is. So, where can abundance mindset help you with your money today? First of all, there is ample evidence that the anticipation of something brings us just as much joy as actually experiencing it. A 2018 study asked participants to anticipate a positive event while undergoing an MRI procedure. The imaging test showed that positive anticipation caused participants' brains to release dopamine, a neurotransmitter that results in feelings of pleasure, satisfaction, and motivation. So even if we're just talking about or dreaming about, or even maybe doing something like vision boarding or mood boarding about the life that we want one day, the data tells us that that has positive real-world impacts in the moment. There's also enormous value in expanding how you think about wealth, i.e. focusing on what you are grateful for, practicing gratitude every day, building community, and thinking about other things besides a number in your bank account as forms of wealth. Limiting ourselves to thinking of wealth as simply what's in our bank accounts really robs us of the pleasure of seeing health as wealth, as seeing community as wealth, as seeing free time as wealth. And when it comes to being motivated for long-term things, especially in our financial lives, visualization is key. This is why many people do things like color maps or planners for debt payoff. Actually getting to see your progress on paper is helpful and it's motivating. And this is something called positive visualization. It's a mental practice that involves creating vivid and detailed mental images of desired outcomes. You are intentionally imagining yourself succeeding, achieving goals, and living your dreams. By engaging your senses and emotions, you immerse yourself in a mental rehearsal of your desired future, fostering a powerful connection between your thoughts, emotions, and actions. Something else to consider is the intangible value that confidence brings, i.e. why people who need money less often come across better in negotiations. People can sense when you're not feeling confident or when you are on the back foot financially. So, especially in professional settings, projecting an air of confidence can certainly create a positive feedback loop for you. In fact, a Harvard study found that candidates who projected confidence, even when their accuracy was lower, were rated as more competent than those who read as less confident but had actual higher accuracy. To me, a big part of this conversation is remembering that, yes, we live in a society, but we also are fundamentally animals, and we send each other subconscious signals all the time via what we wear, how we hold ourselves, and how we behave. You've probably heard the phrase, when you look good, you feel good. And when you feel good, you project things like confidence and high self-esteem. Other people pick up on those signals, and they tend to think of you as more capable and as someone that they want to be around. So the abundance mindset can absolutely work in your favor in your life. Now, as I mentioned at the top, I am not particularly woo-woo, but I also don't like to block myself from receiving a blessing. Something I'm a huge fan of in my day-to-day life is visual reminders of what I want for myself and where I'm trying to go in life. For example, my computer background is a vision board that I made for myself that has images of the life that I want to live, as well as a few tangible goals that I want to reach. I also like to keep Post-its around my house, both to remind myself things like empty the dishwasher, and to remind myself of things like, you're a badass and you've got this. I also try to sit down at least once a quarter and write down all of the things I have accomplished in the last 3 months. I find this to be a really tangible way for me to remind myself of how I am moving forward, and it also creates kind of this positive feedback loop for me of, look what I've already done, therefore I am capable of doing even more. But to put it in TikTok language, simply telling yourself that you are that bitch is a way to really feel like that bitch. Money manifesting doesn't work, but there is absolute truth to the idea that how we think about our money, our lives, and ourselves translates to real-world benefits. Now, of course, this is more difficult in practice the less money one has to work with and the more financial anxiety one is experiencing. There are real financial barriers many people face that often go unaddressed in financial media and education. What's important is finding pockets of agency within your financial life. For me, that looks like taking things one financial goal or challenge at a time. For example, I paid off all my student loan debt before I ever started investing. Focusing on one thing at a time makes me feel calmer and more like I'm in the driver's seat of my financial life. But even if we're just talking about our emotional habits and our mental habits, focusing on the gratitude that we have for our lives, as opposed to focusing on tangible items, also can reap huge mental rewards for us. We are living in the age of hyper overconsumption, and it's very easy to feel that if you are not spending at the rate of a Kardashian or a Bezos, then you are somehow missing out on life, or you are somehow less than them. But by pivoting your attention away from how can I consume more or how can I acquire more into how can I practice more personal joy and how can I practice more gratitude, you will feel better in your day-to-day life. And another personal story, I bought my first house last year at the age of 36. It felt like a huge milestone for me, especially because I have been so low income for so much of my life. I bought it by myself without any help from my partner, which I was also very proud of. Now, is my house 690 square feet? Yes. Was I a little embarrassed to have guests over for the first time? Yes. But then I thought, what the hell, girl? Why are you diminishing your own accomplishment? Why are you speaking negatively to yourself? None of my guests walked around and said, oh my gosh, look how tiny this house is. So why would I say that to myself and rob myself of the joy and pride in being able to buy a house in the first place? So I'd love to hear from you in the comments about how you practice an abundance mindset and how you talk to yourself, especially when it comes to your finances. Thanks to TFD for having me for this 3-part series. Make sure to hit subscribe so that you don't miss parts 2 and 3.